Hey guys, so I've been doing lots of work on this Biscayne. So we just got back from our little road trip. Hopefully those videos you're enjoying them. We're gonna get right back on this thing for a little bit here. But a lot of the comments I've been getting on this, well, some, I shouldn't say a lot. So I've been titling it Budget Biscayne because I believe it's a budget hot rod. And some people keep saying blown budget Biscayne and stuff like that. And whatever, I've been kind of letting it go. And so today's been a pretty easy day. I've been kind of just getting back to normal, kind of relaxed a little bit, washing the cars, moving stuff around. And I was out here, I'm looking around everything I got, and I started thinking, well, everything I have is a budget build. And I guess it's all just kind of relative to the way you want to interpret it. So I bought this 66 4-door straight six Biscayne for $1,000. That's a budget hot rod. I two-doored it. I bought a set of doors and screwed around, spent another few $100s into it. I built the brakes and all that. So we're talking it's, you know, a couple grand. And then I bought a big block and Turbo 400 for $1,000. And then I put a camshaft and an intake and all these things. So it definitely did kind of spiral out of control. But I don't think I have $4,000, $4,500 in this car, which is not a small amount of money, but I didn't blow the bank on anything. I didn't just order a crate motor or whatever it may be. And I think it's all about perspective. Now, this is let's call it a clone or whatever you want to call it. It's a two-door post, big block Biscayne. Well, if you want a 66 big block Biscayne, you're not touching one for $4,000. They're, I don't know, 20, 30, whatever it is for an original one. So where does the clone or the interpretation fall? Well, in my mind, I think it is a budget version of that. So I think people need to take a step back and realize what you're doing. If you just wanted a four-door old car, yeah, they're real cheap. No bones about it. As I'm washing this 57 ragtop, so same thing. I bought this car for $1,000, piled all sorts of labor into it. You know, motor trans, put a floor pan in it, quarter panels, bought the doors. I probably got about the same amount of money in this thing, $4,000 or $5,000. So was it a lot of money to put all sheet metal in and all that? Absolutely. But if you compare it to a real 57 Chevy ragtop, which this is clearly not, they're $60,000, $70,000 plus. So this has, in my mind, all the same feels. So you're driving down the road, there's no roof on it, you're enjoying life, it looks good, doesn't need trim, doesn't need this, doesn't need it, absolutely. Doesn't need a roof, they'll probably move. Yeah, I'm not doing it though. So that's what I think one way of doing a budget. You're way into it for a lot less. Then I started looking around, well, this Nova, I bought this thing, $3,000, a shell of a car, sitting on a two-post lift, no front clip, no subframe, no rear end, no interior, no motor, no transmission, no, it had nothing. And, but it's a 71 factory SS 4-speed car, so it had value in it. So I spent more time and money on this car, even though it looks ratty. I did that on purpose. It actually has new quarters and all that on it. But this is a car that, if you quote-unquote budget build, is still worth a pile of money because of what the numbers on it say. So again, it's all relative. And then we go to the Nomad. Well, the Nomad, so I bought this thing, I think it was $2,500. And if you guys haven't seen the videos on this, I'd recommend checking them out. This thing was a absolute basket case, but it's a 55 Nomad that they only made, I don't know, 7,000 or whatever it was. But in looking at this car, there was nothing in this car almost that stayed. The firewall stayed, the roof stayed, the driver's door, and the tailgate, I think. I put full floors in it, and like full floors, front to back. It got, this is a different front clip, inner wheel wells, core support. I changed the chassis, the whole front end is different. The rear end is out of something else. Full quarter panels. There's not a stitch of interior in it, I still gotta go through that. Buying trim and all that stuff. And as this car sits, I think last time I did the math, I had 10 or 12,000 bucks in it, which $12,000 is a lot of money. That's a lot of money for me. I'm sure it's a lot of money for you guys. But when you break it down to what's a 55 Nomad worth in primer that runs and drives, I think it's probably worth $25,000. And a nice one that's running and driving and painted is probably worth 40 or 50 plus. . So I think you just gotta kind of realize budget maybe just budget minded. I guess it's just relative as to how you want to look at it. And I guess the way I look at it, you're doing a budget build. At the end of the day, if you can sell the car for more money than you have in it, that is a budget build. And if you can do the work yourself, that's a budget build. So if you want to spend a bunch of money on a fancy motor or a fancy whatever it may be, but you can install it or do anything yourself to save money, that's on a budget. And let's be honest, if you can go drop a car off at Chip Foose and he says go ahead and do it, and that's within your budget, that's still a budget build. It's all kind of relative. This 55 Chevy is my next budget build. So we just did that race and we cruised around a 55 Chevy that was really ratty, but it had a rocket ship of a motor, 6-speed transmission, 4 9-inch ladder bars, the whole deal. Well, my 55 Chevy, that's like a 2-lane blacktop interpretation. This was a budget. This was a 4-door car, which I 2-door swapped, did a pile of labor on it. I didn't put full floors in this one, I patched it together. I look back now and regret that. I put in, let's say it's $500 in patch panels and end caps on the stupid supports. I wish I just pulled the trigger and spent the $1,000 or $1,200 to put a full floor pan in. The car would be so much nicer than it currently is down the road. Now it's a beater car anyway, so that's fine. I spent big bucks on the motor. I had it completely rebuilt and all sorts of stuff like that with a turbo 400, which isn't what I want. I want it to be a stick car, and it has the factory rear end, which I spent probably $400 or $500, and I put a 410 posi center section in it. And these old ones, it's a center section. But the factory rear ends just they're not tough. They're weak units. So I don't drive this thing the way I want because I was on a budget. The motor has all the power in the world. The transmission has a loose converter. It's got a shift kit. It can handle, I mean, a Turbo 400 can handle all the power in the world. But that rear end, I put those big tires on it. If this thing ever goes from, it does burnouts good, but if it goes from a burnout to a dead hook or took it to a drag track, it's shattering. It's over. There's no continuing. Do not pass go. Do not collect your $200. It's over. So on a budget, now I'm not happy with it. So I want to go through this car this winter. I do want to put a stick in it. I'm looking at the overdrive transmissions. I want to put either a 9-inch or an 8.8 or something like that in it. So now I budget built this thing 3 years ago, and now I'm going to be redoing the transmission, redoing the rear end. So it's not about, I'm going over budget now. So I should have done it right the first time. I would have had 2 or 3 more years on this thing exactly the way I wanted it, living the 2-lane blacktop, cruising the highway, bagging on the thing dream, and we'd be there. One last thing I want to talk about is tools. We've got a pile of cars in here right now. But this welder right there, that was $2,000 when I bought it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. And up until then, so that's a Miller 215 Multimatic. It does TIG, MIG, and stick. I don't know how many miles of wire I put through that thing, but a lot. And then over there, I just bought a TIG welder not too long ago, Lincoln TIG. But for years, 15 years, I was either borrowing my old man's welder, which I had to go over there and screw around with, or I had a 110 plug-in, whatever the multi-pack from Home Depot was, flux core, blowing breakers, junk. That welder has paid for itself, I don't know how many times over. And I don't regret spending that one. At the time I bought it, it was all the money. It took me like 2 months to pay it off my Visa card, had to pay interest on it and everything. But now, absolutely the way to go. So next time, I guess you're thinking about the budget. If you go cheap and have to redo it, your budget build isn't a budget build. So sometimes you gotta, I guess, spend more money to stay on your budget. Anyways, I just wanted to do that real quick. Get off my chest so everyone kind of knows where we're going with. I realize this is a stupid project, but it's a big block, full-size car, and you can't have them in 4-door, so I had to delete a couple of doors. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the videos. Sunday's going to be a good one. Hopefully we got a new car, new project coming on the channel. Danny's going to love it. And we're closing in at 100K, so if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, leave me a comment, tell me how wrong I am. Enjoy your budget.